What's the correlation between psychological stress and ketone body productions, or ketones? Let's find out in this video. Okay, first and foremost, we need to talk about two separate things for us to fully understand what's going on here. And the correlation between psychological stress, I'm talking about mental and emotional stress, and the effect it has in the production of ketone bodies. Probably the first thing to understand is that stress, not just psychological stress, but all stress in fact. So this includes things like exercise stress, so doing intense cardio, sleep deprivation, nutritional stressors, and even the stress of aging and disease. All increase your body's requirements and needs for glucose. In fact, this is especially true for organs in the body that have a very sensitive or incredibly high metabolic rate. So things like the brain, the eyeballs, and the hair follicles, all which need a ton of glucose because of their inefficient ability to produce it on its own. So this is why chronic stress and aging in general tends to target these organs first. Most diseases of aging, so degenerative diseases, often involve all of these organs. So there are many diseases of the brain that tend to occur with age. Things like Alzheimer's, dementia, general forgetfulness, and impaired cognitive function. There's many diseases of the eyes that tend to occur with the stress of aging. So things like macular degeneration, and even things like cataracts, and the general loss of good vision. And of course, losing the hair or the hair becoming thin or entirely falling out is generally associated with aging. And my point here is that all of these things tend to occur and are so largely associated with aging because of, again, their incredible requirements for glucose. And as we age, as our bodies become more and more stressed, the greater that demand or requirement for glucose is. So meaning, as we age or become stressed, we need more glucose or sugar. However, when we do not get the adequate glucose or sugar that we need to cope with the stress of aging, not only do we start to experience degeneration of all of these organs, dependent of it, but our body switches to alternative fuel sources. And that's exactly what a ketone or a ketone body is. It is an alternative substrate or fuel source to glucose, which is largely why degenerative diseases, things like diabetes, the aging of the brain, are all actually associated with really high levels of these alternative fuel sources and a decreased ability to oxidize glucose or use sugar for fuel. However, it is not just physiological stress and the stress of aging and disease that is associated with the elevated production of ketone bodies. As it turns out, even psychological stress significantly increases the production of these alternative fuel sources known as ketones. Looking at this study on the rise of ketone bodies with psychological stress in normal weight men, it was found that social stress, a form of psychological stress, markedly increased concentrations of serum B-hydroxybutyrate, which is a ketone body, by 454% in normal weight men. So in other words, these ketone bodies, the things that people are trying to actually increase intentionally by depriving themselves of glucose, as I've been saying in almost every video that I make, are one of the key biomarkers or indicators of stress, aging, and disease. And yet people are trying to intentionally increase their production. Something else about this study is that they found that the significant increase of the ketone body production was mediated by the stimulation of the ACTH, so stress hormones like adrenaline and norepinephrine. And again, as I mentioned in just about every one of these videos, the ketone bodies like hydroxybutyrate is created. It cannot be produced without the presence of adrenaline, norepinephrine, and eventually cortisol, which just goes to prove the stress that is ketosis. So now, depending on where you stand nutritionally, if you're a fan of the keto diet, well, this doesn't necessarily have to be bad information. If anything, you could look at it as a tip. If you want to increase your ketone body production by 454%, all you have to do is be chronically stressed out all the time. However, for the rest of us that would rather not experience this and put the body into metabolic stress just to lose weight, take this as a caution and yet another example of the stress of nutritional ketosis. Anyways, that's all I really wanted to share with you in this short video. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but sometimes the truth just hurts. This study is further verifying that nutritional ketosis is a metabolic stress. It is initiated by stress, the production of adrenaline, norepinephrine and other adrenal stress hormones, and that for a very long time, the presence of ketone bodies were only ever observed in stressful disease-like states like diabetes, and in this case, chronic psychological stress. Again, though, I'm not trying to intentionally seek out and bash people on the keto diet. That's not my intention whatsoever. My intention is to bring truth. I want people to know how their bodies really work so that way they can actually eat correctly, get off the fad diets, stop starving themselves, stop going through pain and suffering just trying to lose weight and become healthy, and instead realize one fundamental truth. In the words of William Blake, if it's pleasurable, it's good for you. If it's not, if it's painful, it's bad for you. At least to me, that's a bit more logical and sound, stable datum to base not just your diet off of, but really anything that you do in life to try to achieve health. And I say this because in my experience of the ketogenic diet for a year and a half, and my experience in dieting in general, from what I've seen and experienced, the healthier a diet claims to be, the more stressful it always seems to be. It's like you have to starve yourself the most. You have to deprive yourself of the foods that your body tends to crave the most and experience all this pain and suffering just to get healthy. And I think it's backwards logic. It's based off of the myth that without pain, there is no gain. But that's, again, completely a lie. So for my friends out there on a ketogenic diet experimenting and potentially wondering why they're constantly craving sugar and why they get these hunger pains and the so-called keto flu, well, first of all, as I said many times already, keto is a metabolic stress state. So that's why you're experiencing pain and suffering. Second of all, the reason why you have sugar cravings is because your body craves sugar when it's under stress, because your need for sugar increases. And the longer you're stressed, the more your body starts to crave sugar because it'll start to waste its own muscle to make it. So that's why you're craving it. It's not because you have parasites or candida or any of these other things. It's because you have a low functioning thyroid and you're probably really stressed out. So your body wants sugar to cope with the stress. So again, don't take this video as a personal attack if you're experimenting with the keto diet. I tried it for a year and a half and I got hypothyroidism and a bunch of issues and it wasn't fun. Take this video as a bump in the right direction. The first thing I would recommend is, of course, don't not consume sugar. Just make sure you're consuming the right sorts of sugars. As an example, fruit or fruit sugar like fructose doesn't require insulin to be metabolized. It is directly metabolized in the liver, so it's not very insulinogenic at all. However, something like a piece of bread or grains or these complex carbs are very insulinogenic. So for a lot of people, they mix these things together. They say carbs and they clump all carbs into one category, but there are different types of carbs and they are not created equally. So if you've gone on a ketogenic diet and you're experiencing, relief of symptoms, it's possible that you've just stopped consuming these difficult to digest complex carbs that are irritating your gut and slowing your metabolism. However, this is like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and that baby being healthy forms of carbohydrates. Because eventually, even if you experience short-term gain from going off of difficult to digest grains, polyunsaturated fats, and the real culprits of poor metabolic health and weight gain, low energy, etc., eventually you're going to run into new issues as you decrease your intake of carbs chronically. Your thyroid will start to downregulate. You'll have an increased production of all these stress chemicals that we just talked about, and eventually you'll actually run right back into the issues you're probably experiencing when you started. So if you are curious as to how to eat more correctly from a pro-metabolic standpoint, things that actually boost the metabolism, things that are backed by science, real science, physiology, I should say, then definitely be sure to check out really any one of my online courses. They're all very thyroid driven, metabolism driven, and backed by physiological understanding and research. However, if you're somebody who's on a ketogenic diet because you're trying to lose weight, definitely check out this course. That'll probably be the best one for you. Now, don't get discouraged if you're somebody that's on a ketogenic diet and you're learning this information. If you're truly dedicated to your health, you will be willing to be wrong many times through the journey of good health. At least I was. I had to let go of so many different dietary ideologies before I truly started to understand and learn the physiology and experiment. So if this video does trigger you, again, if you're somebody who's on a ketogenic diet thinking that you're doing all the right things and now you're finding out the opposite, don't get discouraged. Just keep going and try something different. Or just stay on the ketogenic diet and see how it works out for you in about 1 to 5 years when the degenerative effects of chronically elevated adrenaline and cortisol start to show up. However, I hope you don't have to do that just to prove to yourself that you're right. Hopefully you can take this information with a little bit of appreciation and maybe do your own additional information and research, or watch my other videos or continue to watch them, so that way you can learn a more balanced approach to nutrition and health, again, without throwing out the baby with the bathwater. learning about the true culprits of your dietary issues. It wasn't sugar. It never was sugar. It's stress. Cortisol impairs your ability to use sugar, as we just learned. And it's also the polyunsaturated fats, which also suppress good metabolic function. So there are a lot of good things to the ketogenic diet. The general consumption of high quality food, the consumption of high quality fats, getting rid of a lot of the polyunsaturated fats, eating, an easier to digest diet, but it's not perfect. Because of course, the sole purpose or the sole basis of a ketogenic diet is that you decrease your intake of dietary carbohydrates and you rely on burning fat for energy, which is stressful. Anyways, enough babbling for me on my part. I'll let you guys go. I'm gonna get back inside so I can edit this video for you and post it up on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you are new here and if you've enjoyed these videos. Definitely share it with anybody that might find it helpful or useful. And again, if you're interested in checking out my online courses for a pro-metabolic solution to your health issues, you can find my online wellness academy in the description box below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm Nick. Peace.